finally here to do my top 19 books of 2017. So you guys, I have been teasing this list because, top 5 Wednesday and top 10 Tuesday has like had you do like elements of this list, but this is my complete list. And I will maybe throw in a 20th book at the end of it, but I just want to do all the books that I don't have physical copies of or I can't locate at the moment. And then I'm going to do the physical books. I do most of these, I do have physical books. I love them so much, I had to keep them, but some of them I have either loaned to friends or are in the shed, and it is way too cold to go out there. It is 22 degrees in Long Island, and I am not going outside if I can avoid it. So the first book I'm going to talk about is The Unlikelies by Carrie Firestone. The perfect summer contemporary. I really enjoyed it. I think I got it the week after BookCon, and I picked it up at the Strand, and I fell in love with it. It follows this girl, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she unexpectedly becomes a hometown hero when something happens, and she is invited to like a congratulatory meeting where she meets all these other kids that are considered hometown heroes, and they begin an unlikely friendship, and in that friendship they start a plan to like do good deeds for people. And it's not only a friendship story, but it's also a really interesting dynamic story, and it's also you learn like what happens when you try to do something that you don't know if it's going to work out. And I really, really enjoyed it. I thought the characters were so good, the development of them were so good, and it was such a fun contemporary, and I really, really enjoyed it. It was definitely one of my highlight of my summer reads that I read during the summer, and I really hope that if you have not checked it out, you do consider checking it out, because it definitely was a highlight for me in 2017. Going to talk about is another highlight for this year, and it is Long Way Home by Katie McGarry. In the Thunder Road series, and this is Chevy and Violet's book, and I've been looking forward to this book. If you've been following me for a while, you know how much I love like rekindled romance stories, and this is definitely what this is, and I really, really love this book. I gave it 5 stars. It was so good. I really love Chevy and Violet, both as individual characters, but also their relationship, and I was so impressed by this story. It just was so nice, and I really enjoyed it, and I think that they are only under, I think they're definitely the top couple in this, but I really did enjoy Razor and Brenna, but I really did like this couple as well. I just was so impressed by them, and it was just such a fun read, and I loved how the story really was a rekindled romance, and I thought it was just so well done, and major props to Katie McGarry. She really, we don't know if this is the end of the series, but she has moved on, so I really hope she comes back and we get more about these characters, but if not, I was really impressed with Long Way Home. About is Rose Marked by Liva Black. At BookCon over the summer, and I was really excited to read it, and the book did not let me down. The blurb on the back, which I have sent it out to a friend, so I don't have a copy, but it basically says it was a mashup between Ember in the Ashes and Cinder, and I totally agree. I really loved both point of views. I thought that they did a really interesting, I thought the storyline with the male lead was definitely super interesting. I know a friend of mine really was not a big fan of it, but I really liked it, and I loved the development of their relationship. It basically follows the society where there is a plague going around, and either you die straight away, you become umber touched, which means you are now immune to this virus, or you become rose marked. And when you're rose marked, that means that you are covered in these patches, and you can infect other people, and eventually you're like contagious, but also the illness will eventually come back and kill you. So they're quarantined, and a healer unexpectedly becomes sick with this. She has to be placed away, and then it starts her off on this big long adventure. And then you have a soldier who is umber touched, who is also the other dual point of view, and they become interacting, and they kind of go on like a political intrigue mission. I really enjoyed it. It was such a very fun and fast-paced read. I really love both characters, and I know this book has not been getting like the best reviews, or not a lot of people have been reading it, but I really liked it, and if you liked Ember in the Ashes and Cinder, I highly recommend that you check it out. I thought it was really, really well done, and I will definitely be checking out the second book in this series. That is Perfect Scoundrels by Allie Carr. actually read Perfect Scoundrels and the first book in the Gallagher Girls series, like pretty much back to back. And I was not the biggest fan of the first Gallagher Girls book. I've heard that it gets much better as the series goes on, but I simply adored this book. I thought this book was Perfect Scoundrels was so good. It's the conclusion to her High Society series, and I really loved all the books in the series. But this series I felt was a really, really solid conclusion. I loved the heist. I loved the dynamics that we got of all the characters, and also just how the story was ended. I really liked it, and definitely this has become my favorite series of Ally Carter, and I will definitely be recommending this book to more people. I have a lot of gift giving that I normally give during the year, so this might become one of my top series to recommend to people. My friend Tiffany recommended it to me, so thank you, Tiffany, if you wound up watching this video. But I really, really loved it, and I'm so excited to continue on with the Gallagher Girls series this year and also read her new book, which is coming out, I think, in February or March. But this is definitely was such a solid conclusion for me, and I really, really enjoyed it. The final book that I simply adored this year, and this is my last non-physical copy I have, is One Darkthrone by Kendra at BookCon, and I again wound up sending it off to a friend. But I really, really love this book. I loved One Darkthrone. I love Three Dark Crowns. I really love the female focus, and I loved all the lead characters. But this book was so good. I love female empowerment, but also more importantly, female friendships and female dynamics. And I also love sibling relationships. And this book was amazing. Jules definitely became the MVP for me in this novel. I'm so excited to see where her storyline goes in book 3. But it was just so incredible. I really, really loved it. And I just loved how the sisters' dynamics and relationships changes in this book. Definitely remained a series highlight. And I was so impressed by this book. If you have not read Three Dark Crowns or not finished it, I highly recommend you and then move on to One Darkthrone, because there was a massive cliffhanger at the end of it, and it goes right into One Darkthrone. But I really enjoyed it, and there was some shocking twists and turns that happen, and I'm really excited to see what happens in book 3. But also there's novellas coming out that I still have not read, but I will be getting them shortly, I hope. So yeah, the next book I'm going to talk about is kind of a departure, and I don't think I've ever actually had a tie-in novel on my top videos since I can remember doing this, but it is Apocalypse Memories, which is a Buffy the Vampire Slayer tie-in novel, and it is set in season 7. On Hypable.com, I've been doing a lot of, I've been doing a Buffy rewatch, and I've been trying to read all my tie-in novels when they came into the story. So when I got to season 7, I decided to read Apocalypse Memories. Willow is my favorite character in the entire Buffyverse. I love her story arc, and I especially love her arc in season 7. So this book is set early season 7, right in the middle of her redemption arc, and I really, really love this book. I love Willow and Xander's friendship. Well, I've been having mixed feelings about Xander throughout the entire series now that I'm rewatching it. But the one strong part of it is him and Willow's relationship. I really love their relationship, and their relationship was the highlight of the story, and I really enjoyed it. But also the story was really, really cool, and season 7 is lackluster for Giles, but we got him in this book, and I really, really liked it. So this is definitely a highlight. If you are a Buffy fan, and especially if you like Willow and have not checked out this novel, it's kind of hard to find. I would highly recommend it. I got mine off of eBay for like $3, but I really enjoyed it, and will definitely be going on my keep shelf because I really enjoyed it. The next book I'm going to talk about in my top is actually, this is not technically out yet. It comes out in January, but it is Everlist by Sarah Holland. My video review and my review, I think, is posted. I think my review is posted. If not, it's going to come up in the next couple of days. I really love this book. This was definitely the highlight of my reading month for December. It was such a fun read. I love the world building. I love the characters. For those that don't know, it's about this world or this land or this place where the currency is your blood. So they can bleed you, and that is a form of currency. And there's this character named Jules who when she was younger, she grew up in the town of Everlist, and then something happened and she had to escape. But when her father is deeply in debt, she makes the decision to go back to Everlist, and it starts her on this fantastical journey that was so well done. The world building in this book is spectacular. The characters were so well done, and also I really, really enjoyed the twists and turns. The mystery was another strength of this novel. I really, really loved it. The ending had a lot of unexpected twists and turns, and this cover is so pretty. So this is definitely one of the top books I read in 2017, and I highly recommend that you pick it up in 2018. If you want more information about the book, go check out my video review where I sum it up, but overall, such a good read. The next one I'm going to definitely talk about in my bookish goals, in my review of my last book. I had to finish The Fever Code, which is the last book in the Maze Runner series by James Dashner, and I read this at the end of November just because I wanted to fit it. I was not expecting to love this book as much as I did, but I simply adored it. It was definitely the highlight of the Maze Runner series for me, and especially puts a lot of elements of the Maze Runner series into perspective. It was such a good novel. This, for many people that don't know, it is a prequel novel focusing on Thomas and how he created the maze, and it follows all the other all the people in the maze, and you get to see their backstory. I really love this book. This book tied everything together and made the present series make a ton more sense. It was so well done, and I really loved Thomas's character. Made me like Teresa a little bit less, but I really loved Thomas, and I was really impressed by it. Another reason I really wanted to read this is because the Maze Runner movie comes out next month, and I wanted to have a full canonical experience or knowledge before I went into the movie. But overall, I really liked it. And if you have not checked out The Fever Code but have read the other 4 books in the series, I highly recommend that you check this one out. The next highlight book of 2017 was also Wayfarer by Alexandra Bracken. I really love this book. I thought it was a solid conclusion. I know this book series has not had the best love, but I really love time travel novels, and I really was super impressed with Passenger, especially on a reread. So I'm sure that when I eventually reread this book, I will be just as fascinated with it. But I really love how she crafted this world. I will admit, it is a very dense story, but that does not mean that it's a bad story. And I think that it's just a very complex world. But I really love the historical elements of the story and how the characters were affected by their time period. And I loved how we met a lot of new characters in this, and also the ending. It was a very solid conclusion, and I'm excited to see what type of YA novel we get next from Alexandra Bracken. The next book is another sequel, and that is Wind Witch by Susan Dennard. If you guys remember my wrap-up from last year, Truth Witch was not my favorite book in the series. I thought that it took me at least 150 pages to get into this, but I was in this book from page 1, and I loved it. I think the one reason I like this book so much is that all our main characters, we got like 4 different perspectives, I think. Maybe it was 3 different perspectives. I can't recall. But I loved how all our main characters were all in different locations, and it made the story so much more compelling to read about. I love the focus on the Wind Witch, and I really enjoyed the story. It was definitely a highlight for me, and I prefer this book to Truth Witch. There are a lot of people that disagree with me, but that is just my opinion personally. Overall, I really liked it, and if you read Truth Witch and were not that impressed, I highly recommend that you check out Wind Witch, because to me it was a much better book. And then the next book I'm going to talk about is my wrap-ups are not complete without Rick Riordan novels. And this is kind of a dual one, because it's also Magnus Chase, but it's also the second book in the Apollo series. They were both so good. I actually just finished re-listening to this, and I really cannot wait to do Ship of the Dead, which I will be reading next month, hopefully. But I really love this book. It introduced so many different topics, and I think that especially because this is technically a middle grade novel, the topics that Rick Riordan introduces into his novels is just spectacular. There was a lot of there was a transgender character in this, or a gender fluid character in this, and I thought that it was just so well done. But what Rick Riordan does well, other than that stuff, is he just creates a world that is so spectacular. I love all the world building that he does and all the myths that he incorporated into his story, and it's just so well done. I cannot wait to start Ship of the Dead, and this again was a book highlight for me for 2017. Is the second contemporary book to make this list, and it is Geek Or Ella by Ashley Poston. I really love this book, and I was not expecting to love it as much as I was. I went into it kind of blind, but I think I finished this in like a day. It was such a good balance. It's like basically a Cinderella retelling at a convention. I've talked about this so much throughout the past couple of weeks, or the past year since I read it. It has been on every TBR that I've told you guys, like every recommendation video I could think of. Really loved it. It was such a fun contemporary read, and I really loved how it both mixed fandom and Cinderella retelling. and nerdiness into such a fun story. It follows this girl named Elle whose father was a big science fiction nerd, and he wound up running a convention about this TV show. But when he died, she's forced to live with her stepmother. And she winds up going to this convention where the guy who's gonna play the lead character in this TV show is going to be there, and they start an unexpected connection, and it turns into such a fun read. This is definitely this is definitely my top contemporary book I read this year, and I really am excited to reread it. I'm also highly excited to see what Ashley Poston does in 2018 with Heart of Iron, but I really, really enjoyed this book, and I've talked about it so much, but if you have not read Geek Or Ella, I highly recommend that you do. The next book I'm going to read is an Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner book, and this is Their Fractured Light by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. This is the final book in the Starbound series. Can we just admire this cover for a second? This cover is so pretty. But I really, really love this this book. It was definitely a very, very solid conclusion and definitely the highlight of the book series for me. Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner always write as a duo. Well, normally they write as a duo. And they have 2 characters, and this was basically the ending, so you got to basically see all 6 characters, but the main characters in this were Julian, Sophie, I think, and who else? And Gideon. I really love those 2, but I loved how they wound up concluding this series, and I just finished reading Unearthed by them, and I'm really excited to see what happens in book 2 of that series. But yeah, definitely a highlight for 2017. If you have not read this series, I highly recommend that you read it. I do recommend that if you are going to read it, try to read them back to back. I think I would have enjoyed the series a little bit more if I read them in a more quicker fashion. And again, Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff are always on my top books, and this is Gemini, which came out last year. I really, really love this book. I not only love the stories that are told, but also the format of this book, and this book was just so well done. I'm definitely going to take a chance, and I'm going to re-listen to it as an audiobook before the 3rd book in the series comes out, because, and I know that they actually are writing something new together, so that's really exciting, and I really, really enjoyed this book, so I'm excited to see what happens in Obsesso, but I don't want to give too much away if you haven't read this series yet, but if you haven't, you really need to get the physical copy and then get the audiobook, because these books are so pretty, and you need to have it on your shelf as well. The next book, I think, is the only Owl Crate book this year. I really loved all the Owl Crate books, but this was definitely a book that I could not get rid of. And this is Before She Ignites by Jodi Meadows. And this is the first book in the Fallen Isle trilogy. Follows this girl named Mira, and in her society there are dragons, but when she learns something about her society's relationship with dragons, she kind of starts a mini revolution, and it was really good. I love the dragons in the story. I love the characters. I love the 2 different timelines that we got. I really, really enjoyed this book, and I cannot wait for book 2. I have never read anything by Jodi Meadows. This book was really, really well done, and I was really, really impressed by it. So I highly recommend that if you have not checked out Before She Ignites, you definitely do that, and I cannot wait for book 2. Getting to the end of this video. Sorry, guys, it's been so long. But the next book I'm going to talk about is Warcross by Mary Lou. This book came out in September, and it is basically, I think you officially call these books called cyberpunk, and it's about this virtual reality. It's about this girl named Amika Chen, who is a hacker, but when she unexpectedly winds up hacking into the International Warcross tournament, she gets hired as a spy, and it starts a really unique adventure. This book was so, so, so good. I really loved it. I loved the characters. I loved the world building. I felt like I was literally in a video game, and it was a shocking ride. There was one twist that I did say that I kind of saw coming. That's why I only gave this book 4 stars. But the ending really, really shocked me, and I cannot wait to see what they do in book 2. My last official book on this TBR are my top 19 books in 2017 was Roar by Cora Carmack. I really love this book. I got this book at BookCon, and I got to meet Cora. Oh my god, this book was so good. I think it remains my top fantasy book of the year. I really, really loved it. The world building was good. The characters were fun. It was an unexpected fantasy that I didn't know how much I needed in my life, and I really, really enjoyed it. I have talked about this book a lot too, so if you want, go check out my full spoiler review. It was non-spoiler, it was over the summer, but I really, really enjoyed it. thinking back, I think if I had to pick a favorite listen, I think I might say Talking as Fast as We Can from Gilmore Girls. Two Gilmore Girls by Lorelai Graham. I really did like that one as well. And I'm in the middle of a couple of different books as well that I'm still listening to. But overall, I really, really loved all these books. And it was such a fun reading year. I cannot wait to see what 2018 brings. And I hope you guys will be joining me. So I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye!